Hi everyone, my name is Debbie. In today's video, I will show you how to use the Pear Deck add-on for Google Slides to turn a writing lesson into a more interactive lesson and provide students with additional visual supports. Let's get started. First, I created a new Google Slides presentation. I went back to the original slide deck for this lesson and looked at the two images for the writing prompt. I considered copying and pasting the images into my new presentation. However, if you do this, you will not be able to take advantage of the immersive reader feature on Pear Deck. So rather than copying the images, I will be retyping them into a text box. So I'm just going to insert a new slide and I'm going to type writing prompt up here. Next, I went back to into reading and just copy and pasted the text into my new Google Slides presentation. And I will have to make some adjustments, but this makes it a lot easier than having to type everything on my own. I repeated that for the second part of the writing prompt and just copied and pasted the directions here. The upside of copying and pasting the directions rather than just copying the image is that I can adjust the size of the font and I can add numbers so that students know exactly what to do first, second, and third. Now, I'm going to add some images to help support students in understanding the prompt. This is especially helpful for students with disabilities who need visual cues to help them access the text. I looked up some images from Google and I pasted them here, and this will be a great way to visually remind students what they need to do without having them reread all of the directions. So I'm going to repeat this process for the next part of the writing prompt, which is when you draft your personal narrative, be sure to include, and there are some things here, so I'm just going to add a quick visual cue to support students in remembering and understanding this part of the prompt. So I've included some images to represent the setting. Here's a home and a clock for the setting, as well as some people for the characters. For a first person point of view, I included a person who's saying I and we. And for beginning, middle, and end, I included an image of a roller coaster with 3 carts, one for beginning, one for middle, and one for end. As for the last two, descriptive language and figurative language, that was taught during this week. So you can include this in a separate slide because it is a bit hard to include it here. So I'm just going to insert a new slide and write descriptive language on top. Here's a slide with descriptive language and figurative language. You might want to modify this slide to include words from the focal text, roller coaster. And you might want to focus specifically on onomatopoeia for figurative language because that is what students worked on this week. After you review the prompt with students, they will retell the prompt in their own words. So we are going to create a new slide, and for this slide, you're going to make sure you include the directions. I'm also going to include images of the prompt so that students can remind themselves of what they just read. I'm going back to slide 2. I'm going to download this slide as a JPEG, and I'm going back to slide 3 and doing the same thing. Now I have both images downloaded and I can just drag them onto my new slide. I'm just going to resize and crop them so they can fit better on this slide. This is what the slide looks like. I reworded the directions so that it is a bit clearer for students and uses language that second graders are more familiar with. We have both prompts here to remind students what they are. And now we are going to use Pear Deck. So click add-ons and open up the Pear Deck add-on. If you don't have this here, just click get add-ons and look for Pear Deck. Once you have found it, just install it and you will have access to the add-on. So let's open up Pear Deck, and I'm going to turn this slide into a text slide. So students will be able to type their answers. And you can see on the bottom, students write your response. So this is now a slide that has a Pear Deck feature. For the other slides, I have not included a Pear Deck feature yet. However, for this slide, you can turn this into a checklist rather than a bulleted list. So I'm just going to click this one that has boxes for students to check. If you turn this into a checkbox checkbox list, students can actually use this as a checklist for next week's lessons when they start choosing a topic and completing a draft. So they can check off things as they complete them. And if you want to make this a checklist, just turn this into a draw slide. Again, open up Pear Deck and just click draw, and students will be able to check off things as they move on. I adjusted the slide a bit just so students can see all of the words. And again, for next week, students can use this as a checklist. For the next part of this lesson, students are looking at a list of activities and deciding if the activity is scary or exciting. Here is the list from Into Reading, and here is the list from the lesson. To make this interactive for students, you can turn all of these choices into a polling option on Pear Deck. So what we would do is do each activity on a separate slide. So let's just pick ice skate and roller skate, and I'm just going to paste it into a new slide. And now I have my Pear Deck open, and I'm going to make this a choice slide. And the two choices are scary or exciting. And I'm going to update the slide. So to better support students, I'm going to add an image of ice skating and roller skating. And I'm also going to add an image for the words scary and exciting. I added some images of what ice skating and roller skating is. I also added some images to help students know what the word scary means and what the word exciting means. These additional visual scaffolds will help support students not only in responding to the question of whether ice skating or roller skating is scary or exciting, but it will also help them start thinking of ideas for their personal narratives. So you would repeat this process for the rest of the prompts. And this is a great place to modify. So think about what experiences your students have had and include those experiences in the Pear Deck activity. Feel free to adjust these or add any of the ones from Into Reading. These slides are not only going to be fun for students because they can interact and you can share the results, but it will also help students start generating ideas for their personal narratives. So now I'm going to show you what this looks like on the student's end, as well as on the teacher's end. So once again, go back to Pear Deck, open it up, and we're going to click Start Lesson. You can pick either one, but this lesson will be done live, so it's probably best to do instructor paste. That way you can control where the students are. So let's click instructor paste, and this is what it looks like on your end. So just give students the link and they can join. So students can join, they can click how they are feeling, and this is what it will look like. Since you are doing this instructor paste, students will not have the option to advance to the next slide. But on your end, you will be able to do that for the students right here. So once you click that, on the students' end, they will be able to see the next slide and take advantage of the immersive reader on the bottom right corner. They can click on it and they can listen to the prompt again. You are reading the prompt to them first, but this will give them an additional opportunity to listen to it again if they need more time to process. So this is an extremely helpful tool for your students with disabilities, especially because it can narrow the focus to one line. So students can focus on one line at a time and also slow it down. So now let's continue to our interactive slides. And here is the draw it slide with the checklist. So you can use this for next week and students can just check off each thing that they complete. This is the slide where students will type their response and retell what the prompt tells them to do, and they can have the directions read again using the immersive reader. Now the final slide that we have created is this slide where students will pick their answer, and you can see they can pick scary or exciting. So let's say this student thinks ice skating or roller skating is scary. On your end, you can see the responses, and you can see that one person picked scary. So this is a great polling feature for you to see your students' responses. Let's review what I went over in this video. I showed you how to turn this lesson into an interactive lesson using Pear Deck. This will allow students to interact with the lesson and allow them to have additional processing time. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching.